In this video, I'm going to show you how to cut and sew this very beautiful overlap wrap blouse. Okay, I'm going to show you the easiest way to cut and sew the blouse. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm starting with my fabric on a fold, ladies and gentlemen, and I went ahead to tag my bust point, my under bust point, and my half blouse. Now this is the lining because the fabric is multicolored. If I cut directly on the fabric, people will not see it. Okay, so this is my lining, and my lining is on a fold. Now that is my starting line, my bust point line, my under bust point line, and my half blouse. Okay, now from the middle I mark 3 inches for my neck width and 1 inch for my neck depth. The length of this fabric is 25 inches. Okay, so now after marking 3 inches for my neck width and 1 inch for my neck depth, I went ahead to connect everything together. From the middle, I went ahead to mark my shoulder point at 8.5 inches. Now you are going to mark your own shoulder point. Okay, and also at my bust point, I also took my shoulder point measurement, and the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect everything with a straight line. Okay, so that is my shoulder point. Now at that my shoulder point, I went ahead to come down by half an inch because you guys, our shoulder lines are not straight. Okay, so I came down by half an inch so I can easily slant my shoulder lines. Okay, so after slanting my shoulder line, the next thing I went ahead to do was the distance between those two places. I marked half of the distance. That distance of shoulder to bust point is 4 inches, so I mark half and I came in by half an inch. Okay, so after coming in by half an inch, I connected it to my shoulder point. Okay, so now after connecting to my shoulder point, I went ahead to mark circumference of my bust divided by 4, and that is 9.5 inches, and I went ahead to insert my armhole curve. Now you are going to mark your own circumference of bust divided by 4. Okay, so now after marking it, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark circumference of my under bust divided by 4, 8 inches, circumference of my waist divided by 4, 8 inches. Now at the hem, I marked circumference of my hips divided by 4 plus 1 extra inch, so I marked 12 at the hem. Okay, so after marking all these things, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings together. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to add 2.5 inch, I think 2 or 2.5 inches for my sewing allowance. Okay, so 1 inch will be for that, and the remaining 1.5 inch will be for sewing allowance. Okay, so after doing all this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings with a not really straight line but a couple of lines. Okay, so this is what the back part is looking like, ladies and gentlemen. Now I want to add my sewing allowance at my shoulder line, so I went ahead to extend my neck width measurement upwards, and I just went ahead to add 1 cm for the joining allowance for my shoulders. Okay, so after doing this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. Very simple, very straightforward. The next thing I went ahead to do was to cut the sides out because this is the lining piece. Okay, so after cutting it out, I went ahead to fold my main piece, the fabric we're going to work with, and I placed the lining piece on the fabric. So after placing the lining piece on the fabric, I just used the lining to cut the main piece. No plenty talk. Okay, so this is how to cut the back part of this outfit, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now for the front part, that is my bust line, my under bust line, my half blouse, and this line on top is my starting line. And of course the length of this this thing is 25 inches. That's the lining is 25 inches. So now to start this, from the middle I mark 3 inches. Okay, at the top and at the bottom. So after marking 3 inches at the top and the bottom, I drew a straight line. Okay, so now after drawing a straight line from these 3 inches, I went ahead to mark my shoulder point at 8.5 inches. I also did same thing at my bust point area, and I drew a straight line. Okay, so now remember for the back we took our neck width at 3 inches, so also for the front I took my neck width at 3 inches. At my shoulder line, I came down by half an inch and I went in and slanted my shoulder line. Okay, so after slanting my shoulder line, the next thing I went ahead to do was to come down by half, that's 4 inches. Okay, I came down by 4 inches, and at that 4-inch mark I marked half an inch so that I can easily curve my armhole. Okay, so the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect it to my shoulder line. if you've been on this channel, you've seen me do this thing over 1,000 times. Okay, so you understand. So at my bust point, I went ahead to mark circumference of my bust divided by 4, and that is 9.5 inches. After doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to insert my armhole curve. Okay, so after inserting my armhole curve, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark circumference of my under bust divided by 4, that is 8 inches. Circumference of my waist divided by 4, that is 8 inches. And at the hem, I mark circumference of my hips divided by 4 plus 1 inch, so that is 12 inches. Okay, so after marking, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings together. Okay, I connected all my markings together, and I went ahead to add 2.5 inches sewing allowance. You guys, I can't remember exactly. I think I worked with 2.5 or 2 inches, okay, for my sewing allowance. You can add as much as you want. Okay, so now after marking 2.5 inches for my sewing allowance, I just went ahead to connect everything together again. So this is what our front part is looking like. It's looking very sweet. Okay, so now for the overlap, okay, or for the wrap, whatever you want to call it. Okay, the first thing I went ahead to do is from that my starting line, I came down by 5 inches. And the reason I'm coming by 5 inches because I want to know how deep I want my V-neck to be. Okay, how deep and how open I want it to be. So the next thing I went ahead to do was to place my ruler like this from the hem to the top, and I drew a slanted line. So you see I'm drawing a slanted line. That is how you would draw your own. Okay, so after drawing the slanted line, this is what we have here. So now it's to connect that point to the top, and I didn't want this to be too open, so you can see how I drew it. Okay, this is how I connected everything. If I still went ahead to use free hands, you know, kind of smoothing out the sharp edge. Okay, so now just like we did for the back, I extended my neck width measurement upwards, and I added 1 cm for the joining allowance of my shoulder line. Okay, so I added it and I connected my markings together. So this is what we have here for the front part. And like I told you guys, we are working with a multicolor fabric. So I drafted on the lining first so that I can cut on the main piece with the lining. So now, because the front part is going to have 2 different colors, I grabbed 2 different fabric. You want to make sure that the right sides are facing each other, because I made that mistake. Make sure that the right sides are facing each other. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to place the lining on the Ankara print, and I just went ahead to cut. Okay, so this is actually a good use of your scrap fabric, because I actually used scrap fabric to recreate this design. Okay, now the designer, the main designer of this particular outfit is AC, Style by AC, something like that. Stitches by AC, yeah, on Instagram. So you see that point where I overlap, where we are 3-inch mark, you want to make sure you notch that point. That place we marked our 3 inches, you want to make sure you notch that point. Is very important. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to sew this outfit, and we're going to be starting with the back part. So for the back part, this is the back part and this is the lining for the back part. So I went ahead to place it on each other, and I'm just going to join it around the neck. Okay, so I took it over to my sewing machine and I joined it. Okay, you guys, I don't know, I've said this in about the last 2 tutorials. I am currently enjoying my industrial machine because my baby is now used to the sound. He no longer cries at the sound of the machine. So enjoy with me. Okay, now after joining the neck, I flipped it over and I went ahead to top stitch. Okay, so after top stitching, I gave it a good press and I used my hemming gum to hold everything down. You want to make sure you use like your forcible interface around the neckline. I forgot I had to use hemming gum to suffice. Okay, so I used hemming gum to hold down the shoulder line, the armhole, the sides, and the hem. Now this is what the back part looks like, and I went ahead to mark my dart point for the back part. If you don't know how to pick your dart, you don't know how to mark your dart, ladies and gentlemen, you need a beginner class, and I have beginner class and pattern drafting class available, online classes available. So you can hit me up on Facebook or on Instagram to register at Stitchadress. Okay, so after picking the dart for the back part, this is what we have here. You can see we're already contouring our body shape at the back here. So this is what we have here for the back part. This is what the dart looks like after I went ahead to pick the dart. Okay, so now after picking the dart for the back part. It's time to sew the front part. So for the front part, you can see I went ahead to put my forcible interface along the overlap. Okay, so I flipped the fabric to the right side and I placed the lining on the fabric, and I'm just going to go ahead to join. Okay, so you're supposed to put a belt here, but I forgot to put one of the belts for tying here. So when you're sewing yours, remember to put it at the under bust point. Okay, so I did in one of the wraps, so not two of them. So I went ahead to join the lining to the main piece, flipped it over, and I gave it a very good top stitch. Okay, so after top stitching, I went ahead to hold it down with my hemming gum. I also used hemming gum to seal the shoulder line, the armhole, the sides, and the hem. So this is what the first piece looks like, and this is what the second piece looks like. Simple, right? Now remember this place I asked you to notch. This is when we need it. Okay, so now from that notched point, we want to mark our dart. Okay, so from that notched point, I marked 4 inches backwards, and I tried to keep my hand straight, even though it was not straight here, but I corrected it later. Okay, so from that 4-inch point, you try to keep your hand straight and you draw a straight line, and that will be your dart point. Okay, so from the shoulder, from my shoulder line, I came down and I marked my nipple point. Okay, after marking my nipple point, I came down and I marked my dart length at 11 inches. Okay, so after doing this, I just went ahead. I went ahead to straighten my rulers, and of course I told you guys that I corrected the line so that it will be straight. Okay, so now it is straight. So after correcting it, I went ahead to mark out my dart. Okay, so I went ahead to mark out my dart, and this is what my dart looks like after marking it out. I did same thing for the other piece. Okay, if you don't know how to mark a dart, ladies and gentlemen, I have a detailed online class for beginners. If you don't know how to cut, you don't know how to sew, I have detailed online class. Chat up the number on your screen right now on WhatsApp to join the class. Okay, so after marking, I went ahead to sew the dart. Okay, so I picked the dart for the first side. I also picked the dart for the second side. I gave it a good press, and ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have here. Okay, you can see that our overlap is ready. It is ready, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so this is what we have here. Now the next thing I went ahead to do, ladies and gentlemen, was to grab the back part. I placed it right side facing me. Okay, then I grabbed the front pieces and placed it on the back part, just as you're seeing, and I went ahead to join the shoulder lines. Okay, so now I took it over to my sewing machine and I joined the shoulder line. I joined the first shoulder and I joined the second shoulder. Before some of you join one shoulder and you will not join the second one, I said that you that taught you, I will just deny you. Okay, so now guys, we need a band, like a rope, something around those lines for the wrap top. Okay, so the width of this fabric is 4 inches and the length is 17 inches. You can make yours as long as you want. Okay, so I just went ahead to fold the fabric and I went ahead to join one side. After joining one side, I pushed the seam in the middle and I locked one end. So you're going to leave the second end open. You're going to do this for the 2 pieces of the belt. Okay, yeah, belt. It's belt, I'm forgetting. Okay, so now after joining the shoulder line, this is what the shoulder line looks like, ladies and gentlemen. I went ahead to mark out my measurement. If you don't know how to mark out a measurement, you need a beginner class. Okay, you need a beginner class. So after marking out my measurement, this is my belt. Okay, so now for the first strap of the belt, see how I'm opening the seam. I opened up the seam and I just put the belt in. See the way I'm putting the belt? That's how I put the belt in, and I secured it with my office pin. So you want to make sure that the belt is around your under bust point. Okay, that is where you are going to put your belt, at your under bust point. Okay, so I just went ahead to secure with my office pin. I made sure everything was well aligned, and you want to make sure you hold it to your office pin so it doesn't move. Then I took it over to my sewing machine and I just joined the sides of this blouse. Okay, it's not that difficult, trust me guys, this is the simplest blouse you can sew. Okay, so I joined both sides. After joining both sides, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. Now I was telling you guys that one of the belts I was supposed to put it in between the lining and the main piece initially. Okay, so this is what we have here after joining. I was just showing you the insides, and this is the belt. Okay, so now I went ahead to fold the hem and I sealed it down with my hemming gum. I folded 1 inch in. Okay, remember I was telling you guys that I was supposed to put one belt between the fabric and the lining. I didn't do that, so this is what we are going to do. I just went ahead to use this belt. Okay, I kept it straight. I made sure it was straight. Okay, and I just marked the point, the top and the bottom of the belt. So after marking the top and the bottom of the belt, the next thing I went ahead to do was to place this other belt with those guidelines, and I held it down. I held it down before I bite my tongue. I held it down with my office pin. Okay, I don't know why this is funny. I almost bit my tongue, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I held it down with my office pin. After holding it down with my office pin, I went ahead to make clean stitches. Okay, I went ahead to make clean stitches, and this is what I did. See what I did here? That is what you are going to do. I held it down there, and I also made small tack stitches to hold it down properly. Okay, so this is what I did for the second belt. But when you are sewing yours, remember to put it in between the main piece and the lining when you are turning over the overlap. Okay, so the sleeve is a very big puffy sleeve, and I just got the length of this fabric is 17 inches. The width is around 22 inches. Okay, so I got 2 different fabric colors, and I just placed them on a fold. From the top, I came down by 5 inches. After coming down by 5 inches, I drew a straight line with my ruler. After drawing a straight line with my ruler, the next thing I went ahead to do, you want to put, like, you know, the way we mark our basic sleeve. Okay, that is what I just went ahead to do. I marked my basic sleeve. Okay, so let me just show you a close-up view of what I did here. So this is what I did here. You see, you can just use your hand to trace this thing. You mustn't use ruler. Okay, so after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to cut it out. If my voice is coming before the clip, I don't know, my editor, I don't know, I've sent their software a message. They don't have any solution. So after cutting, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, 2 different pieces. So the first thing I went ahead to do was to fold the hem of this sleeve. Okay, I went ahead to just fold it, and I top stitch for both pieces, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so after top stitching, I just went ahead to mark 5 inches upwards. Later on, I felt like 5 inches was too much. Maybe you can mark 4 inches. Okay, so I marked 5 inches upwards, and I drew a straight line. Now this place that I marked, I'm just going to sew elastic on it. Okay, so that we get that puffy effect. So I took it over to my sewing machine, and I top stitched elastic to it. You want to make sure you pull and you sew, you pull and you sew. Okay, so when I got to the end, I cut out the elastic I didn't need. Then I went ahead to fold the sleeve, and I just joined the sides of the sleeve. Okay, I also did the same thing for the second piece. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was just to create pleats. Okay, I created a lot of pleats because this is a puff sleeve, a really like exaggerated puff sleeve. So I just went ahead to create pleats and pleats till I got like the puff I wanted. Okay, so now after creating the pleats and the puff you need, I also went ahead to top stitch on it so that everything is in place. Okay, everything is in place, nothing will be moving as I'm sewing. So this is what the sleeve looked like when I was done prepping the sleeve, inserting the elastic and joining the sides and creating the pleats. This is what the sleeve looks like. So now to sew the sleeve, I just grabbed my main piece, that is the blouse. I grabbed the blouse and I put the sleeve into the blouse. After putting the sleeve into the blouse, I went ahead to secure it with my office pin. Okay, you're going to secure the shoulder lines first. After securing the shoulder lines, I secured the hem, and the next thing I went ahead to, this is what it looked like after holding all the sleeve pieces to the main piece with my office pin. This is what it looked like. So after holding everything together, I took it over to my sewing machine to attach the sleeve to the blouse. Okay, so now when it comes to attaching sleeve, ladies and gentlemen, you have to take your time. Oh, you have to take your time, because if you make mistake, you're going to cry premium tears. Even though this video is fast forwarded, I took my time. Okay, so after joining the sleeve, this is what we have here for the blouse. It is giving first lady, it is giving boss lady, it is giving classy It's giving everything. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow. If you're watching from Facebook, make sure you share, make sure you comment, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. When you create yours, make sure you tag me on the post. Okay, make sure you tag me, make sure you send me pictures. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for supporting me so far. I love you. Bye.